Please don't push me, but y'all push B. Now we got dwellers from Cali to Flatbush B. Now they got heat on they feet that say press B. And now we so deep in the streets, y'all can't stress me. Can't curse me, then bless me. I'm crucifying my flesh, that's less me. SAT'd from preaching, can't test me. Atheists are now believing, that bless me. Yeah, we got the basement replacing any of those worldly pursuits that y'all chasing. Any of those trials and tests that y'all facing. Any of the relationships that y'all changing. We rearranging, making the shame shift. Giving Satan back what's his, that's the blame shift. Rise up and walk commands, that's the lame shift. Cheat codes for living this life, that's the game shift. All on Yeshua, man, the rest is manure, man. I'm dying daily, so I rise up a purer man. Pressing B daily, so my sins looking fewer, man. Washing the blood, so my sins down the sewer, man. Yeah, so press B with me, and let's let whatever gon' be just be. Yeah, so press B with me, and let's let whatever gon' be just be. Welcome to The Basement, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Tim Ross. Shout out to all of my dwellers from all over the world. I hope you're all doing well. Wherever you find yourself today, just know it's a good day. It may not be a great day, but it's a good day, and you're going to get through it. Thank you so much for making this space safe enough for us to be fully seen, fully heard, fully known, fully loved, even if we're not fully agreed with. I thank you for embracing this philosophy and making this platform the place where you go further, wider, deeper, longer than you've ever gone before. You have the ability to make vulnerability your default setting. So thank you for bringing and embracing the gift of vulnerability, and I'm so grateful to be here with you all. Listen, I have a great guest today. I got to meet this gentleman at the end of last year. We were at an event in Fort Worth. It pays, even as an introvert, to get out of your house from time to time. So to all of my introverts, just get out of your house from time to time. It will bless you. I already knew of him. He has great content for leaders, great content for thinkers. He's an avid learner, and he has a podcast. It's just called Simply the Leadership Podcast. And he is here with me today. My Canadian brother has come a little farther south to Estados Unidos, a.k.a. the United States of America, for the first time on the pod. Hopefully not the last, though. Ladies and gentlemen, Carey Nieuwhof is in the building, everybody. Let's go!
Hey!
Let's go. I'm so grateful you're here, man.
I'm so glad I'm here. Man, it was a thrill to meet you because I'd heard about you, and I had some friends who were like, you know this Tim Ross guy? I'm like, what? And it's like, he's blowing up, and you got to check out The Basement. So I've been checking out The Basement.
Yeah?
And I remember that moment. We were exiting a session out of the main auditorium, and you came across the lobby.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, man, you don't know me. I'm Tim Ross. I'm like, I know you.
Yeah.
And you're like, you were just so kind.
Yeah,
And we talked about doing the show, and here we are, nine months later.
It worked.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. Life brought us back together again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well, I'm grateful. I am too.
And I'm like Mr. Preparer. I like write 28 questions and study, and you're like, yeah, we're not going to do that. I'm like, okay, so here we go.
So as a first-time guest, I would love for you to just give us as much background on you as you feel comfortable with. I think a lot of times when people find you at a level of success, the misconception is you must have been here for a long time. You were born into it, and you've always been this person, and so what do I need to know to become you? But I'm like, overnight successes usually take about 30 years.
Yeah, it's still surreal to me, to be honest with you. Like born to immigrant parents. My parents both came over from Holland, hence the super complicated last name, Nieuwhof. Easy to say, impossible to spell.
Definitely impossible to spell.
It is.
Yeah.
And they're great parents, still alive today.
Awesome.
Firstborn of 4. I have 3 younger sisters. And, sort of typical immigrant story. My dad wanted to find a good paying job, provide for his family. Grew up in a nominally Christian home or church going home, let's say for the first 10 years.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
We lived we were almost in Detroit. We lived in the Windsor area, Kingsville, Windsor, when I was a kid, Ontario. So like right across the river is Detroit, Michigan.
Gotcha.
And we grew up in Dutch culture. Lots of Dutch people left Holland in the 50s when my parents did, came to Canada, went to Australia, New Zealand, etc.
Interesting.
So they came to Canada. Yeah, post-World War II, Holland was brutal.
Okay.
Yeah, really, really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, totally dominated by the Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my dad was born in 1940. He has memories of the Nazi soldiers marching past his house on the street. And I've been to that house. And I remember first time I went to Holland, my grandfather was dying, who had only met once and didn't really have a relationship with. My dad's like, you got to go meet him. So I went to see him before he died, and we went to my dad's ancestral home. And I was going across the street, 12 years old, right? You got teenagers.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm like, I'm going to go explore in that field. My uncle pulled me aside and he goes, don't go into that field. This is like 1970s. He's like, don't go into that field. There are unexploded shells there. I'm like, from when? He's like, oh, from the Second World War, which was only 30 years earlier. Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, that sort of immigrant experience that we're going to leave our country and start over again, I think gave birth to an entrepreneurial spirit in me.
Absolutely.
So my dad was quite successful at what he did, learned a trade, tool and mold, so basically plastic injection molding.
Yep.
Worked for other people, got promoted quickly to manager, you know, foreman, whatever, chief engineer, and then started his own company with my mom, and they ran that for 20 years. So sort of that entrepreneurial vision, but faith-wise, went to a Dutch church. And, you know, everybody had a Vander or a something or a Sma in their last name.
Yeah.
They're all Dutchies.
Yep.
And I think my parents, you know, if something had happened to them, they would have been in heaven.
Yep.
But it was as much a cultural thing. Then when I was
Understood.
10, my dad got a promotion. We moved 6 hours away to the southern tip of one of the Great Lakes, Midland, Ontario. Started a new job there. And there was no Dutch church. So we ended up going to a Presbyterian church. And there was a really great evangelical pastor, and kind of like Presbyterian in name, but evangelical in spirit.
Yep.
And my parents had a conversion experience or a rebirth of their faith. And I still remember as a 10-year-old, my dad being downstairs in the basement, pouring all the alcohol down the sink. Just all went, gone. And we got real serious about our faith.
Yeah.
And I gave my life to Christ about 197 times as a teenager. Every time I sinned, you know, I'm like, all right, I'm back. I'm sorry. And
it's funny.
So you know, but what are you going to do with your life? This is pre-digital, right?
Yeah,
I was
for
born in the
sure.
60s. You were born in the 70s.
That's
you were
right.
telling me.
Yep.
So, you know, it's like you just kind of look around you. And when I was a little kid, I'm like, oh, I think I'll be a lawyer. And I don't know, seemed like a good job.
Yep.
So went to law school, did some stuff along the way, got into radio at 16, walked into a radio station. It's like, hey, what's it take to get on the air? Will you hire me? They kind of looked at me like I had 10 heads.
Right.
And then they apprenticed me for 3 months.
Yep.
Which basically meant I worked for nothing.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
My dad was so
free
mad.
labor.
He's like, they're taking advantage of you. And I'm like, yeah, no, I want to be on the radio. And then they hired me.
Yep.
So they started paying me $2.65 an hour. So I was making bank. Like, that was great. You didn't even notice when you got paid.
You
right?
did this with $2, and then you just threw the rest of. You just threw the change.
I was living at home.
You made it change. You didn't make it rain. You made it change.
So I did that, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was just, you know, I still remember walking into the radio station, and, you know, I'm driven, right? I've got that entrepreneurial thing. And I said to my boss, the program director, and it's a local station. Don't get big ideas. It's just a local station, 2,000 watts, AM station. And they said, okay, you're going to do Saturday and Sunday nights. I'm like, great. How many people are
16?
listening? 16. I'm doing Saturday and Sunday nights, right?
Wow.
So I'm like, how many people are listening? And they're like, oh, you have lines. I'm like, what? No, I asked how many people are listening. Yeah, you have lines. I said, what are lines? He says, well, statistically, when there's not enough people to count, they just put a line in that time slot, and you have lines. So basically, nobody listens. And I'm like, okay. So I walk in there at 16, and dude, we're still doing vinyl. We're doing vinyl.
Yep.
And we had this big like plywood bank of records.
Yep.
That was, you know, if that camera is the two turntables and the control booth, I got records all along the side. And then there was a loose leaf binder, and it just had a clock. So if it's 6 p.m., you start with a black and then go to a purple, and they're all color coded. So it's like the purple section of the bin, first record, you play it, and then it's followed by a black, and then followed by a white, and then followed by a red. So you just play them in order. What? This is the 80s, okay?
This is wild.
So you're playing this in order, and the songs were horrible. It was adult contemporary, which means nobody likes it. The kids don't like it. The adults don't like it.
Exactly.
Nobody. It's just middle of the road. Schmaltz from the 80s.
Yep.
So I'm like, well, I wonder if I'll get fired if I skip some songs. So I would be like, oh, this song, like, come on, Barry Manilow, I'm not playing that. And I'd put it at the back. But the next song might be, I don't know, what would we play? We'd play something cool. It would be like Boston or something like that. I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
So then I started playing better music, and we got the ratings book, and the ratings had gone up. But I listened to Toronto radio. We were an hour north of Toronto, listened to the big city. And because I grew up in Windsor, CKLW was the biggest station in Detroit. It was a Canadian station. It was the Big 8. And it played all the hits. And I think that probably got me addicted on radio.
Yeah, for sure.
And on a good night, I could get WLS from Chicago.
Wow.
And WLS, because of the Great Lakes,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
The signal skips across.
That's right. Absolutely.
And at night, the atmosphere changes. So I'd be listening on my parents' Zenith, radio, which I would get in my basement after they were done with it.
I remember Zenith.
You remember Zenith?
I do remember Zenith.
I'm listening, and I'm like, sometimes I could get New York, sometimes I could get Dallas, or not Dallas, but Chicago.
Yeah.
So I'm listening, and I'm like, I want to be like those guys. So anyway, then I discovered that there is a music room that the program director had, and they had all the hits, but they weren't playing them. So they're just sitting in this like basic closet, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they've got Talk. Like, what's this band out of England? New Wave was starting.
Yeah.
And they got all the songs that Toronto stations are playing because, they get shipped by the record company, but they won't play them because they're adult contemporary. So I'm like, well, nobody's listening.
It doesn't matter
So
anymore.
I just started playing whatever I wanted to. And the next book comes out, and we're the number one show on the radio station. It's this like 16-year-old kid playing at night when nobody's listening. And by that point, my coworkers, who I didn't really see because I was in on the weekend, and they're working Monday to Friday, making no money as their they were mad at me because I got away with what they wanted to do, but they couldn't do it because they would get fired. And then my boss couldn't fire me because I had the top show. And so
it was too late.
And then he's like, this show's doing really well. And I'm like, you know what we should do? We should publish a countdown in the local papers. And so we had like the top 30 countdown, and I had no science behind it. There's no internet, remember?
Right.
Or, it was at NASA or something like that.
Yeah.
So I would just literally take my favorite songs, and then if I really liked it, I would make it number one. And I just made up the ranking, like from 30 to number one. Just made it up. And, I was paying attention to what was trending in Toronto and Chicago and New York.
But this was also your taste as well.
But this was my taste. I was a tastemaker.
Yeah.
And here we are all these years later. I'm basically doing that with my podcast.
Oh, my goodness, dude.
So that's a bit of an excursus. Eventually, I had a potential career. I got hired in Toronto to do, I did traffic in Toronto, weekend traffic.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
So
still on radio?
On radio,
okay,
AM
got you.
station.
Yep.
Yeah, it's now the sports station there.
Yep.
But it's one of those things where, again, it was pre-internet. There were just cell phones, and we were not the biggest station in Toronto, so we couldn't afford a helicopter or a plane. And there were two stations in Toronto, major city, that had helicopters and planes. So this is how we did traffic. I would listen to them and then report what they said. So these are all the hacks. And
You don't even know if they were telling the truth.
I don't know, but I'm sitting 25 floors up next to the CN Tower and the Rogers Center, which was Skydome at the time.
Yep.
And I can see the Gardner Expressway, and I'm like, well, it looks pretty clear to me, but that's about as far as I can see. And then we call the state troopers, the offices around the province, and I'd be like, yeah, how's traffic in Barrie? And they'd look out the window and go, oh, it's moving well. Traffic moving well through Barrie today. Like, we were making it up. We didn't know what we were doing, but that's how it was done. So I did that for a while. And then they offered me a career, but I was in law school. Got to law school, met the woman of my dreams in first year. Yeah, that's where I met my wife.
Awesome.
And
her name?
Her name's Tony.
Hi,
And
Tony.
yeah.
That's
She's amazing. We just said goodbye. We'll see each other tonight when I fly home. But spent 3 days here in Dallas together doing an event. She's great. We've been married 34 years.
Congratulations.
34 years. Thank you.
Let's
Thank
go.
you. Not easy years always, but great years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm 25 in with my wife.
Congrats. I saw the 25.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
My parents were just shy of 50. My dad passed away in February.
I am so sorry. Tony lost her dad in February.
Oh, really? What day?
They were married 6th, I'm going to say.
The 6th. Daddy died on the 24th.
Wow.
He picked a cool day, 2/24/24.
That is a cool day.
It's a pretty cool day to die. If you're gonna
That's
go.
hard, man.
Oh,
Losing your dad.
that's my guy. That's my guy.
That's your dad. I was going to ask you. That was one of my questions.
Yeah, one of our dwellers.
Cool, man.
Pulled a picture that I had put up to just kind of remember him by.
Wow.
And she drew it and put it in color and put his glasses yellow like mine would be, because he did have on glasses on there.
Yeah.
It was a black and white photo, and she zhuzhed it. So,
Man.
yeah.
Cool, dude. Well, I love Motown. I mean, he looks like he could be.
Oh, he does.
He could be in the Temptations.
Yeah.
He could be.
He would have been a drummer.
Would he?
He was a dope drummer.
Huh.
Daddy was a dope drummer. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
growing up in Windsor, right across from Motown. I mean, that's what we call Detroit.
The sound
I mean,
was. That sound had to be influential.
Give me some 70s R&B. Give me some 70s Motown, late 60s Motown.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So got into law school, and between first and second year law was working at a firm.
Mm-hmm.
I had rededicated my life to Christ. So after giving my life to Christ 179 times,
Right.
as a teenager, sort of had a wake-up call at 21, 22, and realized I was surfing off my parents' faith. Recommitted my life to Christ, but thought I was going to go to law and be a lawyer, right? Like, that's great. I'm going to be a successful lawyer. That was my thought. Between first and second year, and remember, I grew up Presbyterian and Dutch Reformed, had a supernatural experience. So charisma was not like charismatic gifts, prophecy, the whole AG thing,
Right.
not part of my background.
Right.
But through dreams and supernatural revelations, I started to notice a tug to ministry.
Wow.
And it was so surprising, and I'm Calvinist enough, I got enough Calvin in me, to question it for 3 years. Oh, that was the tacos,
This
that was the pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait,
There's no way.
You're deluded.
Yeah,
God
yeah.
didn't speak to you.
That's right.
But every step of the way, it just kept getting more and more confirmed.
Wow.
And so finished up law, worked for a year in downtown Toronto, wrote the bar admission course, passed, resigned, went into seminary.
What?
Yeah. So went into seminary.
All right. You said it. You said it very succinctly. But what is the time between taking, passing, quitting seminary?
Okay, so did a 4-year undergrad in history and poli-sci, pre-law, and I probably graduated that in, that was 88. So I would have been 23.
Okay.
Go to law school. And then law school is a 5-year process. So I'm articling is what we call it. It's a clerkship.
Yep.
And then you got to write your bar ad. So I was like 27, pushing 28 when I was finished.
Yep.
And then came seminary. And I remember going to the seminary, feeling this call from God and going, so guys, I've done like 7-8 years of post-secondary education here. Can I get some credit? Can I just get the 2-year degree? And they're like, actually, it was law and political science and history. You get 0 credit. I'm like, what?
Disrespectful.
Oh, I remember sitting in the library, calculating the years. Like, I'm not going to be done until like I'm going to be 31 when I'm finished. So I'm like, this is crazy. I've spent 12 years in school.
You could have got a degree from the
PhD.
University of Phoenix.
Yeah,
You could have got a doctorate. They would have just rolled over. You'd be a doctor right now. University of Phoenix existed.
I spent 12 years in university, and all I have is a master's. Although my law degree is now technically a JD, so you know.
Got you. Right. For sure.
Juris Doctor.
Yep.
Anyway, so I go to seminary and just really feel a call. I think I'm going to be called to like downtown Toronto law.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my you have to do an internship, right, or like a residency, a placement.
Yep.
And the classic path is you go and counsel people, or you go to the hospital. You become a hospital chaplain. And I remember saying, I am not wired as a hospital chaplain. I said this to the seminary people. I'm like, I'm not wired. I don't want to go hold the hands of people who are sick
Yeah.
or dying. There are burned out executives downtown on Bay Street, which is our Wall Street. And I said, most of the people who graduate from a seminary can't talk to them, but I can talk to them. And I'm like, let me do it. So I literally argued and lobbied for 3 months. And finally, they're like, all right, you don't have to do a hospital chaplaincy. You can do the King Bay chaplaincy. So I went there and just sat down with investment bankers and lawyers and professionals and entrepreneurs and listened to them while they poured their heart out and prayed with them and tried to help. And I'm like, this is my calling. Like, the church is really good at caring for the downtrodden, but the rich are spiritually bankrupt, and
Absolutely
the successful
correct.
are spiritually bankrupt.
Absolutely
And I
correct.
saw that in my 1 year working at a law firm, and I'm like, okay, this is my calling.
Yeah.
And then I was working as a student pastor at a church in Toronto in a neighborhood where all of those people in the bank towers lived. And I'm like, okay, I could do this. But we weren't sure about long-term, and I thought about congregational ministry, and I thought, I don't have the gifts, and wanted to do a PhD in homiletics at Princeton. Went down and, studied that. But long story short, we thought, well, what about going to like just a regular church and seeing if I could work there? Because I wasn't sure it was going to work out in Toronto. So I heard about, I tried a few places and nobody wanted me. I'm like, all right, because I was sort of a freak, right?
Yeah.
And you don't look like a pastor to me.
It's weird. So
yeah.
what is a pastor supposed to look like?
I don't know. Not like me. Not like me.
Right.
So we found this place north of Toronto about an hour called Oro Medonte that had 3 little dying churches that were looking for a student pastor. So not to do student ministry, but just do the whole churches, do all 3, do the circuit on Sunday morning, and we'll pay you student wages. That's basically it. Full-time job, half the pay.
Right,
I'm
right,
really
right.
good at that. I did that in radio, did that in ministry.
Exactly.
So we went up there and I preached, and then they said, we want to hear another candidate. So a colleague of mine went and he preached the week after. And I'm like, now what do I do? And I thought, well, I better tell the church in Toronto that, hey, this is in the hopper. I might not be here this summer. When they heard that, they panicked, called an emergency elders meeting, and then offered me a very nice paycheck and said, within 5 years, you'll be the senior pastor of this church.
Wow.
Well, most people waited until they were in their 50s to become senior pastor
Right.
of that prize pulpit.
Right.
They're offering this to me at 31.
Wow.
And I love the guy who was a senior pastor, but he was looking to retire in a few years. And I'm like, oh no, what do I do? And I'm like soul searching and like, what if they say yes? And I thought, okay, the church up north is going to say no. They're going to go with the other guy. He was from Rwanda, super charismatic preacher, like amazing, heartbreaking story, lost a lot of his family in the genocide in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're definitely going to go with him.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for that night. I'm like, I'll let them make the decision. I'll just stay in Toronto. And we get the call that night after the elders voted. And I get the call and it's like, well, Carey, you won by 1 vote.
What?
1 vote. I'm like, 1 vote? Like, okay, that's a ringing endorsement. and I said,
Oh my goodness.
I'm giving you the extended mix. But anyway, I said, hey, I don't know. I got this opportunity in Toronto. I'm going to have to pray about it. I don't know what to do. I thought you would say no.
Yep.
I
You've
don't know what to
complicated my
say.
life.
Yeah, you complicated my life.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
give me a better answer.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, I don't know. And then George, the guy in the line, he said to me, hey, why don't you just come up to Oro to help us? I'm like, George, I don't know. Give me 3 days. So I hung up the phone and I said to my wife, Tony, we were married by that point. I'm like, they said yes. Now what do we do? And she said, well, why don't we just open the Bible and see what God has to say? And, arrogant seminary. Yeah, exactly, Tim. I'm like, yeah, just like randomly open the Bible and just find that verse that'll tell me exactly go to Toronto, go to Oro.
Right.
So, but my mind, for whatever reason, went to Paul in Acts 16 when he's trying to figure out what to do.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Lydia, Troas,
That's
Phrygia,
right.
where do I go?
Getting blocked.
Getting blocked.
Yep.
And then he had a
Macedonia.
vision in the middle of the night
That's
from the
right.
man in Macedonia who said, why don't you come to Macedonia to help us? And what I knew is that Macedonia was poor. And what I knew was that Oro was poor. And I think, Tony, you were right. Again, why is my wife always right and I'm always wrong? That is a question for the ages. I'm like, all right. And I cried and she cried and we prayed and we said, we're going north. We're turning down this big salary. I'd already turned down a big salary in law, a not as big salary in ministry, to go for poverty wages in Oro.
And it is Oro, O-R-O?
O-R-O means gold in Spanish.
Yeah, I was just about to
and
say.
Medante is an indigenous name, and it's just 2 townships that they amalgamated. It is literally the middle of nowhere.
I just thought the juxtaposition of this poor area being called gold is just incredibly interesting to me.
You know, I've lived there for 30 years, and I've never thought about that.
Are you serious?
It is now. Interesting. I mean, it was the backwater. In 1995, people were like, you live in Oro?
Yeah.
Like, oh, what happened to you? And now it's like, oh, you live in Oro.
Yeah,
like, I'm like,
yeah.
well, the only thing that changed is we didn't move.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
You know, we didn't move.
We're not smart.
Now it's a highly desired rural
we just
community.
never left.
But we went there, and we've been there 29 years, and God has just done extraordinary things. And
man, you're still there.
yeah, I'm
That's
still there.
beautiful.
I'm not the lead pastor anymore. I passed that off in 2015. Stayed
How
on the
long?
teaching
How
team.
long were you there?
20 years, 95 to today. And the church that I helped found is still our church. And the guy who took over for me is still my pastor. So when we get back, and we're on the road a lot, but when we're back, there will be some people who are part of those original dying churches back in 1995. They're all in their 70s, 80s, or beyond now. But they were in their 40s when I got there. And we just love it. It's a story that only God could write. And that went on to become Connexus Church, which we reestablished in 2007. Sort of, you know, the congregations went through several morphings. And, you know, now we have a couple of locations, probably home to 3,000 or 4,000 people, half of whom don't have a church background. And we love it. It's just great. So God takes you on surprising things. And then I had this little podcast and writing hobby that came along about 10 or 12 years ago.
So you were doing that while you were still pastoring?
Yeah, what happened was I was always interested in, so we went, the churches were small. I mean, I do the circuit on Sunday morning. The smallest was 6 people. There was one Sunday in February, there was 2. My wife and child didn't even come. Like, that's how bad it was. It was bad weather, but there were 2 people. That's the lowest it got. The next church that I would go to had 14 people on average. And these are like, think of New England, you know, the postcard with the little historic church in the country, in the village. It's that kind of vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we go to the mega church to finish up, and the mega church had 23 people. So, you know, stapling it all together, you didn't even have 50 people on a Sunday morning over 3 churches. So within 5 years, we sold the buildings, moved to an elementary school, amalgamated the churches. Then we built a new facility, went from 1 service to 2 services to 3 services. But there were some denominational issues, and I thought, I wonder if we started over again as a non-denominational church. And by that point, we had met Andy Stanley and North Point, and they invited us into a strategic partnership. So in 2007, we rebooted, and we tried to buy the building that we had just built and paid for with people's money. But the denomination technically owned it, and they claimed their right to ownership. That's a Presbyterian thing, which is fine. That's fine. But we offered them very generous. And
Good luck with that.
At the 11th hour, they told us, no, you can't have it, and we're going to keep the church open because it doesn't belong to you, it belongs to us. And so you're going to start over again. And I remember that day, we started over with $0. We walked away from everything, $0, 0 people. We had to start over again as Connexus. Now, some people followed us.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, dude, we didn't get charitable status for a year. A year. And I had to go and raise money because we couldn't take anything that was stamped Presbyterian.
Right.
I had to go and raise money. And I remember calling people. One guy who would go on to become our elder chair of Connexus, our founding elder chair, he was on the golf course in Scotland. I'm like, John, I need you to give. We're starting over again. And by the way, I can't promise you a charitable receipt. Okay? It may never come, or it's certainly not coming this tax year. We raised over $500,000 in 10 days.
Oh, wow.
Got started. God was so good. I remember sitting there that night with the elders who were coming with us, and I've never had a more despondent elders meeting, because I sat there and I said, you know, normally... You know, 2 resources leaders always deal with: time and money. And if you don't have money, at least you have time. And if you don't have time, at least you have money. Because, you know, if you got to get something done in a hurry, you pay a premium. It's all right. We'll just deal with it. I said, we don't have time. We don't have money. And I said, I feel like Moses fleeing Egypt, going, what do you mean they're chasing us?
Right,
This wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
And he's standing at the Red Sea wondering, okay, we're going to drown or are we going to get murdered? Which one? And God, if you don't open a way through this passageway, we're done. We're toast.
Yeah.
And he did. We raised that money. We got started again and went on to become Connexus Church. And so I led that until 2015.
All right, before you go further, what did you learn about God in that situation?
He can be trusted. He can be trusted. And I teach on leadership strategy. I write books on leadership, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, no strategy is going to get you through sometimes, right?
Sure.
I was out of ideas, and I also learned I had to be very open and very vulnerable because it's very easy to pretend as a leader that you've got it figured out when you don't. And so I just said to our current elders and maybe some of our future elders in our core team, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But if we can just band together and we can pray and we can trust God, He'll provide.
Yeah.
And that was the level of strategy I had. That was it.
Yeah.
And He did.
That's awesome.
And we opened up about 2 months later. We bought all the gear with the money that we had to do portable church because we had to start in theaters again. And that's when we became 2 campuses because there wasn't a space big enough for all of us, in the middle. And we opened with 800 or 900 people that Sunday. Yeah, that's a good church plant, man. That's a good church plant.
Yeah, I would say so.
And then Tim, because I'm such a great leader, we were at 400 18 months later.
Oh, dude. That sounds very familiar. Sounds very, very familiar. I can identify with you on that.
Well, we got real serious about reaching unchurched people.
Yep.
And we were doing things nobody else was doing.
Yep.
And the Christians got really uncomfortable, and you walk into the theaters and there'd been a midnight showing, and even though we had cleaners, your floor, your shoes are sticking to the floor from the soda.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's popcorn all over, and they're like, yeah, this isn't church. We had a almost paid for building. It was beautiful. It was state of the art, and you made us leave it, and so we're leaving.
Wow.
But and it got really bleak. I remember there was one meeting with our key volunteers where I kind of had to say, this may not work. And then I had to go to the elders going, our church could die. We were down to $5,000 in the bank. And I said to our finance team, so I take it that's bad. Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. We can't make payroll.
Yeah.
And we did. We did. We never missed a bill, never missed a pay period.
Yep.
But it was right down to the razor wire. And anybody who's planted a church or gone through revitalization probably can relate to that.
Yep.
But now it's thriving. I mean, that was sort of the low.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we started to go back up.
Yeah.
And we had just passed 1,000 in attendance again by the time I handed things over to Jeff, and now we're about 1,500.
That's awesome, man.
3,000 or 4,000 of people call our church home. So
that's great.
Very thankful. And so now I'm doing something else.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Now, when you started doing the pod, did you ever feel like there was tension between you as pastor and you as podcaster? Or was it just kind of, did it feel the same? Did it feel exactly the same?
It's interesting. I went through my life. Often you have milestones in your life, and mine is sort of pre-burnout and post-burnout. So in 2006, 11 years into my ministry, I burned out hard, and I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
I was tired.
Yeah, for
I'd
sure.
been running too hard.
Yeah.
I'd had the throttle on full for a long time. But I'm superhuman, man. I can do this.
Right.
I'm different than everybody. All you weak people who burn out, I'm not like you, right? I'm so much better. I'm so much better. And then boom, overnight.
Yeah, wow.
We went from full throttle to I don't know whether I can even get up this morning. Wow. I ran out of all my energy, all of my joy, my hope, my optimism. It's like someone drained the tank overnight, and it was all gone. And I thought, okay, I'll take some time off. I'll get better. And I didn't get better right away. And went through a lot of therapy. And long story short, that was the marker. I have lived so differently. That was 18 years ago. I've lived so differently in the last 18 years, trying to figure out at first, I've never lost the ability to walk, but you talk to people who've been in the hospital after an accident or a long period of being demobilized. they have to learn to walk again.
Facts.
It's like, all right, we're going to get this walker. We're going to take 5 steps today, 10 steps.
Yep.
I felt like I had to learn how to live again because I was so burnt out that I'm like, and you know, you get moments of clarity in your healing. And I was like, okay, if I go back to full throttle, it's probably 6 months, a year, 5 years until I'm back in the ditch again. And it was so painful. I didn't want to go back in the ditch.
Yeah.
So I had to figure it out. And I thought, okay, one thing that was missing was hobbies. I didn't do anything outside of work. If I wasn't with my family, I was working, and I was only sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night. So I thought, okay, get more sleep, get more rest, sleep, diet, exercise, all those things. But I need something outside of work to take me away from work, or else, you know, when is ministry done, Tim?
Never.
Exactly.
The church is the neediest woman who's ever been on the planet Earth. His bride is the neediest woman ever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know, I'm not into sports. Like that's just not my thing. I took up cycling, which was great. I took up barbecue, which was fun. But I thought I really enjoy writing. And we had gotten people who were coming to us like, why are you growing? Our whole denomination and country is not doing well with church in Canada. And, you know, a church of 1,500 in Canada is huge.
Absolutely.
I mean, here in Dallas, I saw one and everybody felt sorry for it because, you know, everyone's got 200,000 people going to their church, you know, on every corner.
At least that's what they put on there. That's what they report to Barna and
exactly
fastest growing church metrics. That's what they report.
That's what they report.
That's what they report.
It's like, yeah, we had 2 million last Sunday. It's like, there's not even 2 million people within a half-hour drive of here. Right. But no, there are some big boxes here.
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
And so, you know, we were a big box for our context.
For sure.
People are like, how is this happening? And so I got into the habit early of doing workshops and conferences for church leaders, and then blogging came along.
Yeah, I remember
and I thought,
blogging.
all right, I'm gonna start writing, and it just took off.
Wow.
And then with the pod, I started that 10 years ago in 2014, and I had seen business long form podcasting, right? And I thought, okay, this is really interesting. But nobody was doing it in the church space other than Catalyst.
Yep.
Catalyst was doing longer form interviews. But I thought, what if I just got a variety of people? So I started that as a hobby. And then what was happening, the church was growing steadily. Like we had double-digit growth. But the stuff I was doing for leaders was having exponential growth.
Yeah.
Like insane growth.
Wow. Interesting.
And also started capturing more and more of my heart and my vision. And so that's one of the reasons, not the only reason.
Yep.
I stepped out of full-time lead pastor role in 2015.
Yeah.
But then I kept teaching at the church until 2020.
Got you.
And then we still go.
Yeah,
we give,
for sure.
We serve.
Yeah.
We do, you know, we lead a small group, all that stuff. But, you know, this has been my full-time pursuit now for a number of years.
What is it about leaders for you that, because it's one thing to have a passion for something, but for that burden to literally lead you away from something that you have been doing for so long, what is it about leaders or leadership that burns in your heart the way it does?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two things. One's healthy, one's not. I like growth.
Yep.
And that was growing fast.
Gotcha.
So looking back on it, when, you know, one outgrows the other, it's hard not to get seduced by that.
Understood.
So I'm going to just share the unhealthy part first. And I acknowledge that's unhealthy.
Yep.
But the other was, you know, starting out at 31 after all those years of school. And you know this, like seminary doesn't fully prepare you for ministry.
No, not at all.
And I went to law school and nobody taught me how to run a law firm.
Right.
And I went to seminary and no one really taught me how to run a church.
Facts.
So
Absolutely.
I'm in the middle of nowhere, an hour north of Toronto, leading a church, going, I don't know how to do this. And I was so and you know, money's minimalistic. When you got 6 people attending your church, you do not have a big budget.
Right.
And I had taken the pay cut again and again and again to get up there. So we didn't have a whole lot of money, but if I got a book, it was like gold. And I remember when Purpose Driven Church came out, you know, there were cassette ministries at the time, but the internet was I had email, but like you weren't checking out YouTube clips. There was no YouTube.
No.
I mean, you can't, like the information that people have today is unbelievable. It's so scarce.
Yeah, it is.
And I had to figure out any way I could to get an edge and try to figure out the real tools and strategies and theologies we needed to grow. So it was books.
Yep.
It was conferences,
Yep.
and that might be one a year.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because
Absolutely.
it was expensive. You got to get on a plane, you got to go. And we were young, we didn't have money.
Yeah.
And the churches didn't have money. So, I was so grateful for getting that kind of help, any help. The guy down the road who would have lunch with me. The conference maybe once every year or 2 years I could go to, where I would go to a Willow Creek, or I could, learn from Saddleback,
Yeah,
or
for sure.
One Day North Point.
Yep.
I was like so grateful for that. And I just had people who poured into me, and that was the difference, because I had the drive. I didn't have the strategy or the approach that would really help me.
Yep.
And it's just like people who struggled with drinking early in life often go on to be rehab counselors or whatever.
Yep.
Or, your pain point becomes your purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think that's what happened to me. It's like, if I could come alongside other leaders and show them the shortcuts.
Yep.
I paid the stupid tax.
Yeah.
It took me 10 years to figure this out. I got this wrong. I zigged and I zagged and I made a mistake and I fell in the ditch. But I think the way through is this way.
Yeah.
And then, with the pod, what's been really cool is, you start with the people as you know.
Yeah, yes, I do.
But then your network gets bigger.
Yep.
And I can bring access to my audience, to people that they don't have access to.
Yeah, it's good.
And what I wanted when I was a young leader was access to some of the people who were writing the books. I wanted access to some of the people who were leading the charge in the church in the 90s and the 2000s. And if I even got to the conference, there's no VIP badge for me.
Right.
I'm in the back row, in the balcony, taking notes.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Absolutely.
I'll never shake her hand.
Eating lunch at the truck stop.
Exactly.
The little food truck.
Waiting in line with everyone else.
Yeah, that's right.
There was no VIP.
Yeah,
so for me to speak at the conferences that I used to attend is surreal.
Yeah,
for me to be able to sit down, I took us a year, but Jim Collins came on my show.
Wow.
All the time this age. Yeah, you know how hard that is.
That is awesome.
This dude does not give interviews.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I saw him at the Global Leadership Summit like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Or Pat Lencioni has become a friend.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Like all that stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I get to do this on behalf of the people who don't have that kind of access,
That's
as you
awesome.
do.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's the heart behind it. Plus, I love learning from them.
Yeah.
I've got a million questions.
Yeah.
I want to stay curious. The older I get, the more curious I want to be.
Yeah.
And so, for me to be able to say, okay, I've read the books, I've listened to the TED Talks.
Yeah.
What was behind that?
Yeah,
like,
buddy. That's
that
me.
curiosity.
Yeah, for sure. That's great.
So I really, really enjoy that. And the fact that this is now my day job
Yeah.
is surreal.
Yeah.
It's a dream.
So 10 years in, you've been doing this now?
Yeah, podcast is 10 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after all of the people you have met, what do you muse now?
You mean like say that differently?
Yeah. Like what do you spend your time thinking about that you're like, ooh, I wanna know this, or I wanna fix that, or this frustrates me, like that. Does that make sense?
I've got a burning question. And
Okay.
actually, we were just here in Dallas, and we did 3 days on it with a very small application-only group just to test out these ideas.
Okay.
I haven't read the reviews yet.
Okay.
But our team was really thrilled with the way it went. I've got a burning question, which is why do we keep creating churches that eat up and spit out leaders?
I've never been so happy to ask a question to get this question.
Tim, I'm telling you, like, I'm not talking about sexual predators. I'm not talking about thieves. I'm talking about people who love Jesus, who got into ministry, who ended up, and I don't have an answer to that question. It's just the question. It's
just
muse.
a question.
It is muse.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, I want to spend a couple of years trying to answer that question. And I'm in a place now, and you see God, like, I have such a crazy background, right?
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
What causes a 16-year-old to walk into a radio station other than egotism, curiosity? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then law, and then, history and political science, and then, all this like all over the place. But I feel like it was all prep for this moment.
Yeah.
Because, I was training cross-examination. That comes in
That's
really
exactly right.
handy
That's
when you're doing a
exactly right.
podcast. The analytical, the best thing that came out of law school was the ability to think critically. And so what I want to do is I want to sit down and I want to capture stories of people who, because I think, and when you're on my show, I'm going to be asking you about your time as a lead pastor.
Yep.
Because I think, for me, it led me 11 years into this dream journey into burnout. And like, how did that happen? And I can look back and I can say, it was growing so fast. We had multiple years of 30% compound growth. And that doesn't sound like a lot because you hear the Silicon Valley, but you know that.
Yes, I do.
And our structure couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up. And my answer was more people equals more hours. And I just about took my marriage down, not because of an affair,
Right.
but because I was so stressed, I was not fun to live with.
Yeah, for sure.
And I didn't have time for counseling.
Yep.
I started doing counseling, but I didn't have to. I sent people to counseling.
Right.
I didn't go to counseling.
Right.
Dude,
Yeah.
you got to get this right.
Yeah.
And I was young.
Yeah.
And I was saying to the group last, couple of days ago, I am so thankful I didn't have the level of leadership responsibility I have today in my 30s because I think it would have killed me. I think I would have been a headline, a very small headline, but I think I would have been a statistic. And so I escaped by the skin of my teeth. And, post burnout, which is the hinge point for my life, I have become obsessed with healthier personal rhythms, healthier rhythms for my team, because it's one thing for me to be healthy going, oh yeah, I'm going to have some time off this weekend, Tim. I'm going to go out on the lake. What are you doing? And then like, hey, you guys back to work, back to work, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. You can be the leader who just basically has an organization that's servile and takes care of you. And it's like, all the power flows to the top. Well, that's not Jesus. That's not the gospel. That's not where we want to go.
Facts.
So that is the question, is why do we keep creating churches that eat up and spit out leaders? And I think there's a personal component to that. I think there's an institutional, organizational component to that. Like, think about preaching, okay? And this is a multifaceted problem. And again, I'm telling you, I don't have answers. I just have questions at this point because we're early on
For sure.
in asking this. But like when I started preaching in the 90s, it was like, do your prep, get ready, get out. There's 40 people gathered.
Right.
Stakes are low.
Yeah.
Do your best. And hopefully it works out okay and it helps some people and you spoke God's word.
Yep.
Well, now there's social media and you can make a mistake and all of a sudden we've gone from reach your community to all of us can reach the world. And what about my personal platform? And if I make a mistake, there's a lot of people listening and watching. And like that kind of pressure that you carry week to week and day to day, how healthy is that? And then our level of prep versus, Jesus, 30 years preparing for ministry, 3 years of ministry. We spend 3 years preparing for ministry and 30 years in ministry. We've flipped it. That math is wrong. Like, so what does that actually look like, right? And why could he do what he did excruciatingly hard, literally? That's what excruciating means on the cross.
That's right.
That's where it landed him.
That's right.
Right? So, but he had all that prep, and then he kept disappearing. It's like, everyone thinks Jesus healed everybody. No, he didn't. He didn't heal everybody. It was like, all right, I know the crowds are all still there. We got to go on.
Yep. We're out of here.
We're going to disappear.
We're out of here.
Yeah. Let's go get some food. Let's go get some sleep. Let's
Absolutely.
go pray.
Yeah.
His disciples couldn't find him.
That's right.
He's praying again.
Exactly.
Like Jesus was so good at knowing when to call it.
Yeah.
And I am not good at knowing when to call it. I'm getting better at knowing when to call it. And then my prep, there's interview prep, but like, is my prayer life enough? Like, what happens when your platform outgrows your character? You get an implosion.
That's exactly right.
So that's what I'm thinking about.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Well, what's crazy is what you're thinking about is usually what we always are talking about on the basement. And it's the questions that often come from our audience.
Yeah.
We want to know the same thing.
Yeah. And I think like deconversion, deconstruction, all of that is a really big issue.
Yeah.
And you've got pastors and artists and, former worship leaders all deconstructing. And I don't think the majority of pastors are deconstructing. They're not. I mean, statistically, they're just not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the people I know, they love Jesus. They believe Jesus. They would have a semi-orthodox or orthodox understanding of Scripture that stands up to history. What C.S. Lewis believed, they basically believe, right? So, I mean, they've got that, but if the patterns are not healthy and their personal life isn't healthy and their marriage isn't healthy, because there's a treadmill to ministry that just keeps going faster and faster and faster and faster. And the more you grow, the faster it seems to get. And we do have examples of people who've done it well, like Craig Rochelle, I would say, has done it extremely well. Life Church, the largest church in the nation. I mean, just north of here. Like Craig has learned to adjust his rhythms and has actually gotten healthier.
He has.
The larger it's gotten, the healthier he's gotten. He's an anomaly. Because most of us, first of all, we don't have his build. We don't have his muscles. We're not as jacked. So there's a disadvantage for me right there.
He's just a taller Tom Cruise.
He is. He's a wonderful guy.
He is. I love him.
But he has worked so hard on his development as a human, as a Christ follower, as a husband, as a father. But it's almost like you got to put more into the personal journey than you do the professional journey, the vocational
It's the truth.
journey. Yeah.
It's absolute truth.
And, I got swallowed up by that in my 30s.
Yeah.
And so I have spent the last 18 years figuring out, okay, how do I not do that again?
Yeah.
And, my personal deal, and this is a variation of what John Maxwell teaches, is I want the people closest to me to have the best experience of me. I don't need them to be grateful for me. I just want to make sure they get their best. And this morning in the hotel room, we were getting ready. Tony's flying out before I am, my wife. I said, what was your favorite highlight of this conference that we did? Our first solo, our first rodeo, one that we started from scratch, did everything,
Yeah.
It was our team's first. Usually I speak at other people's conferences. This is the first one I did myself. She said, my favorite thing about this conference is that you were not stressed. You treated me so kindly behind the scenes.
Oh.
Because let's be honest, like all of us, right? Who absorbs the shrapnel when the leader explodes? Family does.
Absolutely.
Your wife does. Your kids do. It's
absolutely.
like, don't talk to dad. He's grumpy right now.
Yeah.
And we had a moment. We opened up that first building. So about 8 years into the beginning of my ministry, around 2003, just over 20 years ago. We opened up a brand new state-of-the-art, multi-million-dollar facility. It was like national news in our denomination. And the 3 little churches all moved into that. And, it was great. And we're at the opening service. And my wife is in the front row crying. And they're not tears of joy. There's sadness, bitterness, resentment. This church stole my husband. I don't even know who he is anymore. And, we opened another broadcast facility last year or 10 years ago for Connexus. She was in the front row celebrating, tears praising God. And we were better. And for her to say that at our first event, because she said, how come you weren't nervous? Like, how come you weren't? Because I wasn't nervous. Well, I was, like a little bit, but like you weren't going over your talk incessantly. You weren't like, and I'm like, I don't know. I just have a peace with it now. I'm better with it. Not that I don't make mistakes. Not that I don't have bad days. Not that I don't get upset. I still hate lines. I don't like traffic.
For sure.
All those things are there. But and my son was there too. He works on my team. And our team experience was just one of joy. And 30 years ago, it would have been, that was an incredible conference. And the guy in the back row would have thought I was a hero. And my team would have been like, oh, I need a vacation.
I got to get away from this guy.
So exactly. Exactly. And it was just that nervous energy. Like, well, what about that light? We got to fix that light. We got to get this done. And then, I don't like the audio level. Wait, can we change the mix? Can we change the mix? Because I have control freak tendencies. And so, it's been 18 years. Well, really, I go back over 20 years in therapy. But 18 years ago was that hinge point with the burnout. But like, it's a progressive sanctification. Well, what if we could start there? Why, there's often a redemptive story, but often it gets written by someone else, right? There's a redemptive story, but it's the guy who comes in after me with a mop and a bucket.
Right.
To clean it all
That's
up.
Exactly
the pastor
right.
had an affair.
That's exactly right.
And the pastor just went, berserk on the staff.
That's right.
We had to fire him, toxic culture. So I didn't get fired. I was able to, step back as a much healthier version of me after that burnout. But like, I don't want some future husband of my wife to write the redemptive story of my family.
Lord Jesus.
I want to be that dad to my kids,
That's
to
right.
my boys. I
That's
want to be
right.
that husband to my wife.
Yeah.
And I want to be that leader
Yeah.
to my team
Yeah.
and that friend to my friends.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I got a lot of work to do. And
Yeah.
sanctification, the hard part is it's never done.
Right.
And God only uses broken people because they're the only people that he has.
That's all he got.
Right? So it's not like, oh, we have this perfectly minted ideal leader right
Nope.
out of seminary at 22.
Nope.
We all have to go through that. But what is broken about our formation? What is broken about the model? What is broken about the way we do this or the way we approach this? Because I have a bigger audience now than I've ever had.
Yeah.
But I don't care as much as I did when. You know what I mean? I care
know
about
exactly what you
but
mean.
you know what I mean? Like it's just not.
It doesn't matter. Right? Like it's
Yeah.
of consequence and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
'Cause
Like I don't
that's
want
the
to blow
tension.
it. I don't
Right.
want to. Yeah, I don't want to blow it.
Yeah,
But like I would be so stressed over 500 people,
Right.
and now there's like 50,000 or 100,000 or 500,000
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever the numbers are, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
And you know, one day it'll go away, right,
Right.
Tim?
Right.
Like one day, no one's going to listen to
Facts.
my show.
Facts.
One day,
Yep.
you know, I love your show.
Yeah.
But the basement will be no more.
Absolutely. Somebody else is
married.
coming. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody else is going to probably take over the
Some
show.
23-year-old doing push-ups right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's coming for it.
So, you know, there's that yeah, I'm trying to figure all that out. That's what, and I have the luxury, what I didn't have as a lead pastor, and I talk to my friends who lead significant ministries, and they're like, here's what we're grateful for. We got our heads down. Sunday's coming. I got to get this work done. If you can figure out the church trends for 2025 and just point me in 4 or 5 directions that I need to be paying attention to, if you want to bring me Jim Collins, if you want to bring me Tim Ross, if you want to bring me, you know, guys like that is great because I don't have the luxury of time to do it. So I see it, well, I'm doing this on behalf of others.
That's great.
So if I can spend a couple years digging into that burning question,
Yeah.
and then offer something that won't be the answer, but maybe some help,
Yeah, for sure.
then I will have made a good contribution.
Well, this is significant work. And it's a significant question. And I'm so grateful for the care that you have to take the time.
Well, it's the first time in my life where I'm like, all right, I think I have a couple years. If this takes 5 years. And actually, the Jim Collins interview was really instructive because the question really crystallized in my mind last year. And I started writing the outline for a book. And so I'm writing the outline for a book and I'm like, yeah, this is good. And I'm going over, you know, I got like almost 700 interviews now.
Yeah.
And some of them have been around this issue.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going there. It just came up.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
So I'm looking through old transcripts, listening to old clips, watching old videos, trying to figure it out. And I'm talking to Jim Collins, and he's like, takes interviews very seriously.
Yeah.
Like we were back and forth with this team for a year, and he was so gracious to give me a couple hours.
Yeah.
And I said, twice he said in the interview, I'm 66 years old and I'm halfway through my productive life. I'm like, what? So the second time I'm like, what do you mean?
Right.
You're gonna live to 130? You're
Right.
doing this like, you're doing blood transfusions or like what's going on?
Exactly.
And he's like, no, he said 10 years ago, I started this project that I've been working on for a decade. And I don't know a lot of details about the project, but he said, you know, with Good to Great and Built to Last and all the books he wrote, How the Mighty Fall, he says, I feel like I've canvassed the business life cycle fairly well. Done a good job with that. He said, I've been studying people and humans and what makes for greatness in people and leaders. And he says, this is the most significant work of my life. And Jim's taken 10 years to investigate this. And he says, when this comes out in a year or two or whenever, he says, it'll be the most exciting project I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a luxury of time.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know, because you can chase a book contract and you
Yeah,
know how
for
that
sure,
works.
for sure.
Nice advance. Oh, now it's doing 9 months or, you know, whatever. And then, you got to have another book right after that because that was in the contract. You're like, well, I don't have another idea.
Yeah.
So I got the freedom right now just to say, well, if this takes 2 years, it takes 2 years. If it takes 5, it takes 5. And So I don't want to say too much, but my team and I want to spend some time on the road, having conversations, plotting things out, doing original research, spending some time, and hopefully being able to come back with a gift that will be helpful to leaders.
Well, I don't think it's just going to be a gift, Carey. It's going to be an extravagant gift. And again, it's the care and the consideration to take the time.
Yeah.
Because we need this answer, bro.
Well,
the church needs this answer. No pressure.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is worth the time you are taking.
Thank you.
To get the answer.
Well, when you're on my show, we'll have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
Because thank you. I really appreciate that. And I am sort of field testing the ideas now.
Yeah.
Almost like, a comedian, you're 1 a.m. at the comedy club and all of a sudden Seinfeld shows up or Nate Bargatze shows up.
Yeah.
They're trying out new material.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
want a bomb at 1 o'clock in the morning, not on their Netflix special taping night.
That's right. It's a great analogy. I'm a comedian.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I just started back.
That's fun. Stand up?
Yeah, stand up. Yeah.
Oh,
I've been diving in, getting 5 and 10 minutes here and there in clubs.
Yeah. So you want a bomb at 1 a.m. You don't want a bomb as the headliner in the theater.
That's absolutely
right.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
So I'm like workshopping ideas. Yeah. And the other thing, I interviewed Malcolm Gladwell for the second time.
Yeah.
He's got a new book called Revenge of the Tipping Point, which is a revisitation of the tipping point, which really broke him out as the Malcolm Gladwell we all know.
Correct.
25 years ago. It came out in 2000. And I said,
believe that book.
Isn't that crazy? I know.
Wild.
I'm like, what's the big difference between the way you wrote then and the way you wrote now? And he said, well, what I did, and this is good advice for writers and creatives. He said, what I did in 2000 with my first book is I used too many stories and too much data. So it's like, here's my point. Example 1, example 2, example 3, example 4, data, example. He said, and I read Revenge of the Tipping Point. And basically, he has one story per chapter, and he just tells the story, and it's parabolic, right?
Yep, of course.
Like Jesus saying,
Yep.
there was a farmer who went out to sow.
Absolutely correct.
It's not like, and also there was a bricklayer who went out to lay bricks, and
That's
also there was a stonemason who went out to lay stone.
That's right.
It's like, and as preachers, we often do that.
Yep.
We give multiple examples or like more data. We think more data.
Yeah.
Malcolm's like minimalist, so I want to do some primary research, and I want to have a lot of stuff that'll never even be B-roll.
Yeah.
That I'm like, okay, I've done 25 interviews.
Yep.
And now I've realized this keeps coming up. That's how Jim Collins, by the way, found level 5 humility. Is he has a whole team and they have a very empirical, scientific approach to their research, but he was studying businesses and he was trying to figure out what moves you from good to great. Like, you're good, dude, right? Like, you're sharp, you work hard, you got good strategy, you got a good team, but then there are some that just outperform others, and what is it? And his team came to him and said, it's humility. And he's like, no, that doesn't quantify. That's stupid. No. Back to the lab. They come back a month later and they're like, it's humility. And he's like, that's silly. And then he started looking into the data and he's like, they're right.
Yeah.
And so those conclusions surprised him. And Malcolm Gladwell said, where I'm writing now, because he's not beholden to a book advance. He's in the stratosphere.
Yeah, for sure.
He's like, I'll start researching a topic I'm really interested in, and I'll go do a bunch of research and interview a lot of people, and then I realize, I'm totally heading off in the wrong direction. I got to go this way. And that's what a primary researcher does. If you're going to write a biography of George Washington, you want to go to the archives, you go to the Library of Congress.
Right.
You're poring over his papers. You're poring over his letters. You're poring over his notes. And then you're like, oh, I thought it was this, and all the other biographies say this, but it's this. So I'd like to do some of that investigative research. Hey, you're a detective, right?
I love that stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
some
a nerd
investigative research to try to figure out what is in the water supply, what is going on, what's making most of us good people sick.
Yeah, man. I'm. Oh my God! Like, I literally I wanna stop the pod right here so you can just start. Like, I need you to go figure it out. Like, I want to end the pod. So, Carey, go to work now. Get your team. Go do all the investing. We need the answer to this question.
Yeah.
A whole generation needs it. Boomers need to know what they missed.
Yep.
Right? And we got it, and the reason why I think it's so important, the reason why I'm so excited for you to do this research and for you to answer this question, because I don't want my generation, millennials and Zs, to do the opposite of what has hurt them.
Right. In other words, I will become an atheist, or I will become. Well, say more. No, say more. I'm filling in your blanks.
I appreciate your self-awareness on that. Yeah. I am. What I see a lot of people do, right? So let's take the analogy I always give is, hey, if your father didn't hug you growing up, right? Then you grow up, I'm going to hug my kids and I'm going to love my kids, right? Yeah. And then you hug your kids and you love your kids, but you're not thinking about your kids. You're thinking about your dad and the hug you didn't get.
Right.
So the hug's not even genuine, right?
That's
so
good.
Let's put this to church, right? I'm not going to be in church for 15 hours a day like my dad was. I'm going to be a different type of pastor, right? I'm going to take the Sabbath seriously and I'm going to love my family. And you go on your vacation, but you're just thinking about the fact that your dad never took you on one, right? And you take your Sabbath, and you're not even like Sabbathing. You're going, damn right, my daddy didn't take it. Look at me, I'm better than my dad. I'm proving that I'm better than him, right? So the opposite of what hurt you doesn't heal you.
Right.
You got to get healed.
Right.
You just got to get healed. And when you get healed, naturally, you can do the right thing now.
Wow.
So I believe this question needs to be answered so it will help people not swing the pendulum to the other side.
I think you're right. And we're seeing that pendulum swing to the other side.
Yeah.
Where people are dropping out, where people are going, you're all the same, right? It's kind of like if you've been dating for a while, and you break up, and it's like, your woman, it's like, he's a disaster.
Yeah.
And then this guy's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then it's like, this guy's not very good either. And
Yeah.
then third relationship. And then eventually it's like, all men are rotten.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? All men are rotten.
All men are dogs.
We're terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
We're terrible.
Right.
So, and I feel like that's what's happened with the church.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't see is there is a leader. Yeah, there are charlatans and tricksters and fraudsters and, predators out there, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But that might be, it's certainly single digits.
Facts.
It's probably 1%, 2%.
Yep.
And now they make the headlines. So
Right.
it seems
Absolutely.
like it's 80%.
Yeah, exactly.
But most of the pastors I know, first of all, don't lead large churches.
Yep.
Secondly, great people.
Great.
Who really love Jesus and have faith and are doing this not for the money, not for the fame, not for the recognition.
Yeah.
And they're getting eaten up and spit out too.
Yeah.
And the next generation of leaders, number one, there's not enough of them. And number two, they're highly sensitized because now we have access to everything.
That's right.
They know about trauma and PTSD and toxic workplaces. They know all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if they smell
They
it,
know a little
they're
bit
out.
about it, though.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They don't
know
have
enough.
their masters.
Yeah, they know enough that TikTok told them.
Uh-huh.
Right. And so and for some reason, I don't know who leaked the glossary of terms. Narcissist, gaslighting, you know what I mean? Manipulative. But we got a whole generation running with the glossary of terms, but can't even give you the definition to them.
Oh, that is so right. I heard the term gaslit for the first time in gaslighting maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I read the definition 3 or 4 times, and I don't really understand it. and then it became so normal.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll study it again. And now it's like, oh yeah, he gaslit me. It's just
It's like,
I don't know.
Are you?
What, he filled up your car with diesel? What happened?
Here's my interpretation.
He
corrected you on your job because you actually didn't get it right. Yeah, he's gaslighting me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my Lord.
Yeah.
So now everybody's a narcissist.
Yep.
Right? Like, and everybody's gaslighting. And it's like you have the glossary of terms, you don't have the definition, and you haven't spent 6 hours in therapy.
Right.
as a client,
Right.
let alone as a student.
You know, we were talking about this here in Dallas, but Rise and Fall of Mars Hill podcast.
Yeah.
Interesting podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm not justifying anything that happened.
Yeah, for sure.
But I listened to it, and it was really difficult to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to take a break. It's like, all right, I can't do another episode for another 2 weeks, and then I come back to it. But I finished the series.
Yeah.
Keller episode was gold because he did one
Okay.
on that series.
Yep.
Where they interviewed him about it. Anyway, long story short, rather than judging Mark,
Yeah.
I just realized I'm an Enneagram 8, and the seeds of most of what happened there are in me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, maybe a lot of them didn't grow up to maturity, and the stakes were a lot lower because I didn't have national attention.
Right.
I didn't have any of that stuff when I was a pastor.
Yeah.
But prior to my burnout, I'm like, oh, yeah, just add a bit of water, and that would have been me. That would have been me.
Well,
and when are we going to reflect on that?
Yeah, I mean, think about it, Carey. You burned out with a church of how many?
I was about 800 in attendance at the time.
Okay, 800 people in attendance.
Yeah.
Not 8,000, not
Right.
18,000.
No.
Right?
Right, exactly.
Like
I burned out without the internet, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, I burned out without TikTok.
And
I did it all by myself, Tim.
without the aid of social media.
Without the aid of social media. I mean, Facebook was barely off university campuses at the time.
Exactly.
It was 2006.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg was still doing smash or pass, basically.
Exactly.
That's all he was doing on his pod, right? On his on Facebook, the Facebook at the time. I don't
Facebook.
even think the was dropped from it at that time.
I
right?
think you're right. I think you're right.
So my that's my thing is you don't need a lot to burn out, and it's Galatians 6:1, right? Consider thine own self lest thou also be tempted.
Right.
It's that part.
Because we're great at going you.
Exactly.
You.
But that first verse is, if your brother is overtaken in a fault or sin, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thy own self lest you also be tempted. Like, that's the whole verse.
Yeah.
Ye which are spiritual, restore such a one.
It's interesting, you know, and I'm not a psychologist despite all that time in university.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Right.
But I wonder if we're in a cultural moment where you know, it's way easier in marriage. It's so easy for me to point the finger at my wife. Well,
For
you
sure.
said, you did. I mean, that's just human relationship.
Easy, yeah.
But one of two things: either we haven't really turned the mirror on ourselves, or we feel so bad about ourselves we can't admit it.
It's the latter.
It's the latter. We feel so bad about it. So in order for me to feel better about myself, I'm going to tear you down.
That's absolutely correct.
Because if I'm a lousy worker, if I'm lazy, if I'm, you know, sick or whatever,
Yeah.
rather than deal with my own junk,
That's
I'm going to
right.
be like, well, Tim, you're toxic.
That's absolutely correct.
I got to get out of here,
correct.
dude. I got to leave you. You know, so yeah. And the thing I want to create with you know, why do we keep creating churches that eat up and spit out people, is a safe environment for those of us who are in leadership or have been in leadership and are around leadership to be able to talk openly and freely about the struggle that we're in, the system, good, bad, and ugly, and then what we can do about it. Because I think a lot of people who are in an unhealthy situation feel trapped. Like, if you're the leader and you're the pastor, you're supposed to have all the answers, right? You're supposed to be the one speaking for God. For you to go, it's not good at home. Or I created this and I don't know how to keep up and the treadmill's going too fast and I think I might die. For you to put your hand up. Like, I went to my elders after I was broken. So it'd been about 3 weeks, because you're like, shake it off. You know, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
I just got to get out on my bike. I just got to get a good night's sleep. I just got to do something. And then it's like getting worse and worse and worse. And then I took those 3 weeks off and I went back to the elders and I just said, I'm broken.
Yeah.
Like, I'm broken. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what's wrong. And they loved me.
That's it.
They loved me, and that helped. They
Yeah.
said, "What do you need? A sabbatical?" I'm like, "No, because I'll never come back." So, and I knew it. I
The
would.
greatest answer ever.
I will run away to the opposite side of the world. I'm going to live out the book of Jonah.
It's the greatest. I'm going straight to Tarshish.
I am. I'm going to Tarshish. And don't send the whale.
Oh my gosh, it's the greatest.
So I'm like, and they were great. But I've talked to pastors since then who went to their board and they're like, all right, you're fired.
This is the problem.
It is the problem.
This is part of the problem. All right, so I only pastored 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't do it a third of the time that you did, right?
Yeah.
I did 7 years, and year 4 was my burnout year.
Wow.
Burnout. Okay, the church doubled in attendance.
Yep.
The way I was leading the church at the time needed to change, which means I needed to fire myself from the way I was leading the organization.
Yeah.
I needed to change who was running the church, which meant I had to transition a dear friend of 20 years who came in to help and to help me do
Right for the first season, not for the second.
That's exactly right. Right. So and didn't know how to communicate it, didn't have that language. And I'm an imploder. I don't explode. I implode. Okay. So my implosion took place in July. I had asked for 2 years for some words to be on our walls, just outside of Embassy City Church. If this place got buried in under 200 feet of volcanic ash and someone excavated it 2,000 years from now, outside of the name of this church, is anybody going to know anything about us? Can I get some words on the walls or culture codes, just something else about us beside the name? And they're like, yeah, we'll get to that. And they never got and they never got to it. So for whatever reason. And so on a Saturday night, I went to Home Depot and bought 6 cans of spray paint. And I put every statement, culture code, words, phrases on the walls. Opened up the doors for ventilation so I wouldn't get high off the paint fumes. And it was a Saturday night. I was not preaching the next Sunday. I had a guest speaker. And I didn't attend church that. So the staff gets there early in the morning, Sunday morning. They think somebody's vandalized the place. 2/3 of the church think it's the coolest thing ever, which I was happy about. I was like my own Banksy at the church. And then my wife and the elders were furious. Wow. And I couldn't even see it. I was just like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't see what the big idea is. And then I had my devotion time Monday morning, and I just happened to be reading through Exodus at the time. And it was all about the tabernacle and make sure you build this according to the pattern, right? Make sure you build this according to the pattern. The Holy Spirit lets me read the whole chapter, like 3 or 4 chapters, and he's like,
hey,
that graffiti's not according to the pattern. So I had to get up the next week and repent to the whole church. It was Communion Sunday, so I had to repent in all 3 services, Well, one of the elders comes to the house. He's like, bro, is everything okay? I'm like, everything's fine. And then he's like, yeah, I don't think it is. And I was like, well, I'm in a bed. I don't feel like I'm in the right position. And if you need me to lead like this, then maybe I just need to quit. Maybe you should give the church to somebody else. And they're like, well, we think you need some time off. What would that look like for you? I was like, bro, give me a weekend at the Four Seasons and a full spa package with Van, who's the only masseuse that knows how to like crack my body. I was like, let Van work on my body and I'll be fine. And they were like, oh, we think you need a little bit longer than that. And we were thinking like 6 weeks. It's like, only 6 weeks. So I go to Juliet later that night. Get a load of this guy. He thinks I need 6 weeks off. Juliet's like, you need at least 2 months. Wow. They wound up giving me 3. And I get up abruptly in October. I don't get up abruptly, but I'm in the middle of a series. And one Sunday I just get up and go, I'm going on a sabbatical. and I'll be back in January. And I didn't say it like this, but my sentiment was, if y'all are here, cool. If y'all not, cool. But if I don't leave now, I ain't coming back.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do
Yeah.
it. But they loved me. And they let me, they loved me, not what I did.
Right.
They loved me. They cared about me enough to confront me. Right?
Yeah.
Not just have my back and stand on my side, but stand in front of me. Confront me. Stand in front of me. I love you too much. I see it. You can't see it. You can't even feel it. You're numb. And you need some time off. And I'll wrestle you down. I'll fight with you in your own house before I let you get back up in this pulpit, because I don't care about the preacher. I care about you.
Wow. What made you open to that kind of correction, counsel, confrontation?
The 28 years I've been a believer in Jesus, I've been in therapy for 26.
Wow.
Because after 2 years of my salvation, I realized that all the altar calls were doing is opening up a can of worms for me. Like I came up Pentecostal.
Right.
Looked at my hands, they looked new. Looked at my feet, they did too. Look what the Lord has done. Right? I grew up in that. Right? Holy Spirit, break chains. Let's have an altar call for lust. And we're going to get it out of you right here at the altar. Everything's going to happen
Once
at the
and
altar.
done. Once and done.
Boom. You came down here. You got it. You're free.
Yeah.
And then I left and it was still there. And I was like, everybody must be getting delivered except me. I must be the worst. I think Paul said he was the worst sinner. I think I got him beat. Right? Yeah. It's about to be a 67th book because I think I got him beat, right? So we'll just staple it to the back.
Right.
So
New revised.
yeah, new revised version. Well, once I got into therapy, it's an amalgamation of my wife, who loves me so much and she's walking X-ray vision. She has a spirit of discernment, and she speaks the truth in love. Sometimes she speaks the truth, and the love is like around the corner down the street in the bushes. But sometimes the love makes a cameo appearance. She's going to tell you the truth. So I've always appreciated that, and then I curated friendships that gave me the same, and then that's who I chose as elders.
Wow.
I didn't choose buddies, because most elder boards are built in the best of times that won't endure the worst of times.
That's a really good point.
Right? Because everybody's like, hey, man, we're starting a church and we all feel good and you're my homie and you're my homie and you're my homie. And, bro, just be on the elder board and just oversee me and look, and it's going to be great, and I'm never going to burn out, and I'm never going to have a bad day, and I'm never going to look at anybody beside my wife, and I'm never going to have a horny thought, and I'm never going to want to steal the money and be entitled and feel like I could put this on the church card because I'm doing all the work anyway and you don't pay me enough, so I'll just siphon it off. You know, I'll use this card for some meals and maybe half of my vacation, and we'll call it a business ride. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had guys that would tell me, Tim, you're full of crap.
Wow.
And I don't think you're hearing from God.
Those are great friends.
Yeah. You're not hearing from God right now. And I remember, I'll never forget, I came to an elders meeting one day and in shorts and a t-shirt. Like, because I wasn't working that day.
Yeah.
And, but I came in for the elders meeting. And one of my elders said, do you expect me to take you seriously? In shorts and a t-shirt?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm off.
Right.
And he was like, you're leading us governmentally.
Wow.
And you expect me to take you serious? I was so pissed. I wanted to punch him in the throat. And I never wore shorts and a t-shirt again.
Mm-hmm. And it's hot here.
Right? You know what I mean?
I know what you
mean. Like
Yeah.
he communicated something like, don't expect me to take you seriously if you don't take yourself seriously.
Right. Those are good friends.
No, dude, I got ride or die. And it's the reason why I was able to do the 7 years God told me to do without scandal and without a burnout and without doing something stupid because they actually loved me more than the thing I was doing. So I know that's an ingredient in all the findings you're going to have. But
well, you know, I mean, do you know a lot of people who have been in ministry for any amount of time who haven't gone through some kind of personal crisis, even if it didn't blow up the church or
don't know
end
one.
their marriage? I can't
don't
think
know
of
one.
Yeah, who didn't have a dark night of the soul.
Oh, that whether you do this for 4 months or 40 years, it's coming. So until we normalize that, right? Like we're not.
I think that's the idea.
Yeah,
is you got to normalize it.
Yeah,
right. You gotta bring it to light.
Yeah.
Because we do get put on a pedestal. We're assumed that we don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I've tried to be as flat as possible.
Yeah.
You know, when you have 6 people, it's you're kind of crazy if you put yourself up on a pedestal.
Exactly right.
But if you get a crowd,
Yeah, for sure.
right, then they will start to put you on a pedestal,
Yeah.
and they want to believe certain things about you.
Yeah.
And so I work really hard even now to let them, hey, it's just Carey, man. Don't
Yeah.
call me. You know, I'm getting the stage where people are calling me Mr. Nieuwhof, or people want to call me Pastor Carey. And listen, I know there are traditions where you have to be called pastor, but I'm like, just Carey. And I come from a tradition where it was reverend,
Yep.
or reverend doctor,
Yep. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you wear a robe,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, just Carey.
Yep.
Because, and then, you know, it's crazy because people say, well, will you pray for me? And sometimes I have to look at them and go, you know, I don't have a hotline, right? Like my prayers carry the same weight as your prayers.
Absolutely.
And I'm not even saying I'm better at it.
Right.
than
Right.
you are,
Yeah. For sure.
right. I might pray a lot.
Yeah.
I might have gone to seminary.
Yeah.
But like we are the body of Christ.
That's
I am
correct.
not the body of Christ.
Correct.
But there's something, you know, and here's something to think about too. And this is interesting, right? Because you have a bit of a pre-digital memory. I have a pre-digital memory for sure. Most of the people today who are over 40, who have big social media platforms, never set out to build a platform
At all.
They did something significant. They
Yep.
did something worthwhile and meaningful, and the platform created itself.
Correct.
Now, they could have stayed
Facts.
off Instagram or TikTok.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
And maybe they're doing a couple things to cultivate it, but it's not like I'm going to build a platform. I'm going to build a platform.
Right.
If you're under 40, there's a lot of how do I build a platform? How do I
Correct.
build a platform?
Correct.
That puts a pressure on it that is unsustainable
Absolutely correct.
because your platform will outgrow your character.
That's right.
And eventually, you know, you get nothing to say. I heard Tim Ferriss talk about this with Cal Newport. His number one video online is about how to peel a hard-boiled egg. Nothing to do with his business, right? But if you become known, let's say you have a moment where you're preaching about something, you get really passionate, really fired up, and it's authentic and it's in the moment and it goes viral,
Yeah.
right? Then all of a sudden you look at it, you got 100,000 views. You're
Yep.
Mike Todd, you got
Yeah.
a million views,
Yeah.
right?
For sure. Yeah.
And then you're like, well, I gotta be fired up next week.
Yeah.
Except you're not fired up.
Yeah.
You're in a mellow mood.
Yep.
But now you're faking it.
Yep.
And then soon you become the fired up guy.
Yep.
And everything is like a new rant.
Right.
You're the flaming Cheetos
Right.
of, you know.
Yeah.
preaching.
Because now you're trying to ride that wave. You got to keep it up now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because this came to me later in life, in my 40s and 50s in particular, I could see the pressure and I'm like, I'm just going to be me.
Yep.
And that means like right now, I got a video that's blowing up on Instagram. It's got over 100,000 views in 12 hours.
Yep.
And I look at it and it doesn't attach to my soul.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's interesting. And the next one will have 3,000 views. Right? And that's
And
okay.
2 comments.
And 2 comments, right?
In a month.
Exactly. And one of them is my mom, right? Which is really nice. Thanks, Mom. Glad you're still watching. Glad you're still watching.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know.
It's hilarious.
I don't know. Like, and again, these are more questions than answers. But
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
how do you learn that when you're 22? Like, is it possible?
No. Well, if the 22-year-old really wants the cheat codes, here's one of my biggest like frustrations with the 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
in particular, 20-year-olds. There's a lot of 20-year-olds right now. They want mentorship. They want discipleship. They want fathering, except they didn't have any.
Right.
They didn't have any dads, right? So the moment there is a teachable moment, teachable or a moment of instruction, their response, a couple people might say it, but their response is, "You're not going to son me."
Oh, right.
And so we have a fatherless generation that doesn't want to be fathered because they've never had the father's voice. So it doesn't matter how soft the father communicates, it's harsh.
The father only says nice things.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it's like,
that's not being a dad.
That's not being a dad. And then I'm like, did you read Hebrews 12? Is it in your Bible? Because it shouldn't skip from 11 to 13. There's a Hebrews 12 in there. And it's pretty profound if you read it. So those are some of my tension points. I have a young man who I'm discipling right now. Both he and his wife are in their 20s. They do everything I say. Not that I'm the smartest person in the world and I'm some guru, but I got some time.
Yeah.
I've had some time here, right? I'm 49. I look 32.
You do.
I've had some time here. I'm not just popping off at the mouth, and they've done everything I've said, and they're like, "Oh, snap, this works."
Right.
And so they asked me the sweetest question, Carey. They were like, "Why are you taking time with us?" Well, first of all, they're driving 3 hours away from another part of the state.
They're hungry.
They're hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
On my days. Like I met with them the first time. I'm like, okay. I said, I need you to do this, this, and this, and I'll meet with you again in 90 days. They came back on day 100.
Wow.
Drove up 3 hours to check in. I've done everything you said. What's next?
You want.
I'm like,
that's who you want. That's the money.
That's money. And he goes, "Hey, I do have an agenda. I want mentorship. I know you don't have a lot of bandwidth. But how are we gonna do it?" I said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna mentor you, and I will give you my number in January. And once I give you my number, you have full access to me. You can bug me. The squeaky wheel gets greased. Allow me to tell you when you're on my nerves.
Wow.
Don't ever assume you're bugging me. "Oh, he's too busy. I don't want to." No, just blow me up until I tell you, "Okay, calm down now." Because that's what I did to all my mentors. I just bugged the hell out of them.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Bugged the hell out of them. I didn't care how busy they were. I didn't care how many books they were writing. I'm like, "Got time?" "I don't have time." "Okay, great. When will you have time?"
Right. Good for you.
Because nobody's that busy. You got a calendar just like everybody else.
But I think you factored in. I'm just thinking out loud. I think you're touching on a point that is true. We have all this opportunity, all this influence, all this information, and social media, as Jonathan Haidt is showing, really has changed the game.
Yeah, it has.
And we've died in community.
Yes.
Because we don't have fathers. I mean, some of us do, a lot of us don't.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Your dad's right behind you.
That's right.
Picture him.
That's right.
I have a good dad.
Yep.
But, my dad's also at the point where his memory's slipping a little bit, and he can't give me the kind of advice he maybe could have 20 years ago.
Right.
But I had that lifetime.
That's
I
right.
have a rich community.
That's right.
If you're young and you've got all the responsibilities of leadership, and now you got the challenge of platform, because that's what it is. It's a challenge.
It is a challenge.
And you're alone.
Yep.
And you're navigating normal life. Maybe you're in love. Maybe you're married. Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you've got this. You got financial things where you're trying to afford a house in an unaffordable environment.
Right.
You got all that going on, and you got no one to process with.
Yep.
The clock is ticking. The fuse is burning down.
It is.
You're going to blow up.
Yep. I can set my watch by it.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
I know.
Unfortunately.
And so what do you do about that? I don't know.
Yeah.
And, books and podcasts and all that can help. But like, this is a crisis.
It is.
And it was 2 years ago, I sort of thought about the next few years, and I thought, what is the real mission? And I've said for years, in my company, it's to help people thrive in life and leadership.
Yeah,
because that's a mission I've been on
Yep.
for 18 years.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, I think I've figured this out personally. I've helped a lot of leaders
Yep.
down that road with some, time, energy, and priority management approaches, some very strategic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when I thought about what is the real mission ahead for us as a little group producing content to help leaders, it's like, oh, I want to help reverse the decline in the church.
It's good.
And I sat with that for a while, and then I thought, well, what is that? Like, I can give you, and I do, here's some strategies that help you reach new people. Here's how to assimilate some new people. Here's how to disciple. Here's how to,
Yep.
fill in the blank.
Yep.
But if the house is unsteady, if the foundation is broken, it's only a matter of time until the whole thing collapses. And if
Facts.
the leader is going down,
Facts. Everybody's
if the
going down.
leader, everybody's going
Yep.
down. And that's why I think I stumbled on the question.
Yeah.
And so if readers, or listeners, viewers have ideas or stories, send
Yeah.
them to Carey at CareyNieuwhof.com.
Great.
Because we'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
We're going to interview some well-known people.
Yeah, for
some
sure.
A-listers.
Absolutely.
And we're going to interview people who, nobody's ever heard of.
Absolutely.
Because your story matters.
Yeah.
And, somehow Jesus is looking at us going, yeah, it's my church, but this is not what I had in mind.
Not at all.
No.
Promise you.
No.
Especially Western context. This is not what he was talking about.
And I'm not the guy to say, let's burn down the mega churches.
Me either.
Because I wrote this paper in my final year of seminary because it was a denomination of small churches. And ironically, 17 years after leaving the denomination, they've invited me back
Go
to
figure.
teach them.
Wow.
And I'm like, yes. And that's not like gloating, but I want to
No.
show up with a towel over my arm.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
how can I serve? How can I help? Is
Yeah,
there
for
anything
sure.
I can do?
For sure.
Where was I going with that? I was saying, in a denomination of really small churches, I wrote this paper in seminary, and because there was a big suspicion of big churches, and right now in this cultural moment, there is a suspicion of big churches.
Yep.
Ironically, big churches are most of the churches that are growing are big churches. Right. Creates this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Where the growing churches are the big churches. Well, of course. And so I wrote this paper that I called The Small Church Dilemma. And the small church dilemma is, okay, you want to reach people. You have 40 people. You start reaching people. People invite their friends. Now there's 80. Then there's 100. Then there's 200. Then there's 500. What do?
Exactly.
Artificially stifle the growth?
Right.
You go, everybody go home?
Right.
You don't need this anymore?
Right.
You
right.
eventually end up with a larger church.
Right.
And now we have thousands of people who call Connexus home.
Yeah.
It's like, so what do? You try to steward it well.
That's right.
But what's gotten the bad rap is this idea that all big churches are corrupt. All big churches are this. All big churches are not. That's not true. Some of the best.
true.
And the other challenge is the megachurch pastors get a lot of criticism because people say, well, you're a one-man show. Like Tim disappears, the whole church falls apart.
Yeah.
We mentioned Craig. If Craig falls, the whole church falls apart.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true.
It's
There's
not.
an incredible team
Yeah.
behind most large churches.
Oh, yes, there
If you
is.
go to 500, let alone 50,000,
That's right.
you got a bench and
That's
a bench
right.
for the bench.
Absolutely
and the bench,
correct.
The bench's bench has a bench.
That's exactly right.
And you got leaders, not
Yeah.
managers.
That's
You've
right.
got leaders.
That's right.
Who are in the house.
Yep.
And they are ready.
Yep.
And they're leading.
Yep.
Meaningful ministries. The ultimate one-person show is the small church. It's like one person, hey, can you come visit me? Hey, can you go to my parents' wedding anniversary? Hey, you're preaching this Sunday. Good. Better be good. I'm bringing my friend. Can you clean the toilets over there? It's a one-man show. It's a one-woman show. The small church. So somehow we say that's mega churches. It's not.
Wow.
And I know a lot of small church pastors, and they'll tell you, I was scrubbing the toilet.
Of course.
And I was opening and closing the building, and I am there for every meeting. Well, that's not sustainable either. It's not just the mega church.
Absolutely correct.
It's the small
Both
church.
paradigms have a trap.
And often those people will serve for 40 or 50 years, but they never reach their potential because they're on a treadmill they can't get off.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
The moment they get off, my pastor's not there for me anymore. My pastor doesn't love me anymore. Oh, you must be big time now. You got an assistant.
Right. And
You can't meet with me now. Yeah, that's gaslighting. That's properly gaslighting.
most of them desperately want to be liked. They don't want to offend people. Like, I mean, if you're doing a pod like yours, you got to be okay with some critics, right? Well, I'm sure you've never had a critic.
There's one in the comment section now.
Right, exactly.
I don't even know under what clip, but they're in there right now.
They're in there right now.
They're rebuking me on behalf of the Holy Spirit's
In all
indignation.
caps.
In all caps.
In all
Absolutely.
caps.
Yeah, yeah. With church emojis and fire and crosses. There's a bunch of stuff.
No, you know, like you eventually, if you're leading a larger thing, you have to develop
You have to.
some kind of skin
You have to.
or a filter.
Yeah.
So you're like, whoa, that is like when your bro pulls you aside and says,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
you're wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like, I'm listening. I'm taking notes.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
When some internet troll
Yeah.
who's on his 17th podcast today criticizing you tells you you're wrong, you're
Yeah.
like, I got to let that go.
Yeah, gotta let it
But
go.
a lot of them, they're so pastorally minded. They're such shepherds.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
That all criticism just kills them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're right. This is I love the emphasis on the church, but specifically the pastors, because if you strike the shepherd, the sheep will scatter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not that you asked for this, but I'm gonna submit this unsolicited, okay?
Good.
And I'm just ideating for the name of this book.
Okay.
I just got this one thing that's been going up around in my head, and it's probably, I know for a fact it's probably not going to be the name of the book, but this is what I'm going to refer to the book as.
Yeah.
I'm going to refer to the book as, whenever it's done, as Chew, Spit, Swallow.
Chew, spit, swallow.
Because we all got to chew this stuff to figure out if we need to spit it out or swallow it.
Oh, wow.
So you have to bite into it. That's all your data and your investigation and all the people you're meeting with and the research you're going to do. You got to chew on all of it. But then there's going to be some stuff you're like, okay, we spit all this out. We learned this and this and this in culture, and we've been doing this in church. We got to spit all of that out now, and we got to swallow this.
Wow.
We swallowed some stuff we shouldn't have swallowed. We got to throw that up.
Right.
And like I said, it's too gross, and we're talking about mastication and all that kind of stuff. But chew, spit, swallow is the name.
No, that's an interesting metaphor.
Yeah, that's what I'm calling the book in my head.
Okay. Well, watch for the acknowledgments page when the book comes out, and we'll see whether Tim makes it or not.
No worries.
That's great. No, you're right, because we have swallowed stuff we should have spit out.
Yeah.
And we spit out some stuff we should have swallowed.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we got to chew it first.
We do.
Yeah, right. We got to break it down, like, and so.
And hopefully we get to a cultural moment where there's greater grace and greater understanding and more empathy. You're an empath.
I am.
Right?
I am.
So why can't we exchange? One thing I had to learn early on is you can't build yourself up by tearing someone else down.
You can't.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
The Bible says you can't do it.
Yep.
And life says you can't do it.
It does.
Right.
And the hood says you can't do it. I'm from the hood. You
can't do it.
don't do it.
And it'll kill your marriage. It'll kill. But we do this all the time. It's
Yeah.
like, you want to know what's wrong with Pastor so-and-so. You want to know what's wrong with that church. You want to know what's wrong with her. You want to know what's wrong with him. And it's like, what is that actually doing?
I don't know how you get to an altar call if a third of your message has been about somebody else's church. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, as a lead pastor, I would never expose my congregation to a restaurant that would give them food poisoning. I wouldn't even mention it. They're not even eating there.
Wow.
They don't even know about it. Now I'm gonna tell them. Somebody's gonna be curious enough to go over there and be like, "Is it really food poison?"
Right.
And
Let
get
me
food.
try it. If I have just a little bit,
Yeah,
it won't kill me.
It
right?
won't kill. I
It
won't eat the
kill me.
whole plate.
That's right.
Right? I'll leave the
It's cheap there.
asparagus.
It's cheap there.
Right? So like, yeah, I got a whole philosophy on that, and that'll take us a whole nother 30 minutes. I want you to go start writing this book and doing this research. I'm so excited for it.
Well, thank you. We are in the ideation stage.
Yeah.
And
I love
to
that
see
stage.
the validation
Yeah.
is like, is this worth pursuing?
It is. I'm telling you.
It's on my heart.
Yeah,
and it's
buddy.
just starting to come out in little pieces.
Yeah.
But, my hope would be that we see a much healthier church.
Yes.
And a healthier church starts with healthier leaders.
Absolutely.
If we can get our leaders healthy,
Yep.
if we can get us into the place where we don't feel like we're prisoners of our own devices.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we built this thing
Yeah.
and now it's eating us alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you felt that in
Yeah.
ministry. I felt that in ministry.
Absolutely.
And people feel that in business too. Like
For sure.
business leaders, I've started something, what's it called? E-Myth Revisited, that great book by Michael Gerber, is it? Al Gerber? I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, Gerber.
Yep.
Anyway, it was like, this woman who loves to bake pies opens up a pie shop.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, more people want pies and she sells out. So now she's working 12 hours a day. And now she had to hire people. And, now she's running like a production line of these pies and she doesn't like making pies anymore. What do you do?
Right.
What do you do? And that's
Right.
a great question. I think we've all been there.
Yep.
And it just took me a long time to figure it out.
Yeah.
And, how can you run at a sustainable pace?
Yep.
That's the big question.
That's it. Well, if I didn't answer this, I would feel I would feel disingenuous. The Lord gave me a revelation years ago that I affectionately refer to as the culture of walking. And the philosophy, Carey, is that Jesus fulfilled every Old Testament prophecy that was ever spoken about him without ever running anywhere. Wow. So there is this sustainable pace that has been made that allows him to see a short man in a tree, Barnabas to get his attention, blind Bartimaeus to get his attention, a pace that's so sustainable that a woman that has been bleeding as long as Jairus' daughter has been alive can touch the hem of his garment.
And he notices.
And then he stops.
Yeah.
Because he's so not in a rush that he's like, I have enough time for this and that.
Yeah.
So I can stop her blood flow and I can start hers. And that's only sustainable through walking.
Wow.
That's only sustainable through walking. That will never happen running. If Jesus runs to Jairus' house, if he meets Jairus' urgency with urgency, the woman with the issue of blood bleeds out.
Wow.
If he runs through the town, blind Bartimaeus is never heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If he runs through whatever town he was in, then Zacchaeus is never seen. If he's running, he never notices that this fig tree is not bearing fruit like it was supposed to, and then curses it. So there's so much stuff, and I do a walk most mornings, a 6.25 mile walk.
That's a lot.
I could do a run. I notice so much more walking than I ever will running.
That, it's so funny because the more I slow down, the bigger things tend to grow. It's weird that way. The less I care, the better it tends to go, the more I slow down.
Yeah.
And, there is a tension between, as Groeschel would say, between being driven and being healthy.
For sure, absolutely.
And you can get so healthy that it's like, have you done anything
Right,
in the last year?
Exactly.
You've been on that couch for a long time.
That's right.
Man.
That's right.
And how are those Cheetos?
Yeah.
That's great. So that's not healthy. But,
Right.
where you're so healthy, you're like, and when you're talking about younger generations, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't feel safe. It's
Yeah.
like, you can be so afraid of conflict or so afraid of hard work or so afraid of rolling up your sleeves. And not every Gen Z is. But,
Right, for sure. Absolutely.
But you can get to that point where you're like, I'm not going to do anything anymore. Well,
Exactly.
you don't grow unless there's resistance.
That's
a day in
excellent.
the gym that feels easy is not a day where you made progress.
That's right.
It's going to hurt. It's going to burn.
That's right.
And you'll probably be a little sore in the morning.
That's right.
On the other hand, you get so driven. And I think that's where the church is, at least in growing churches.
Yeah.
That you've lost health along the way.
That's right. Absolutely. And we just need to get that back.
Do you find this? I'm at my most kind when I have the most margin.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I'm just like, if I have margin in my life and I slept okay.
Yep.
And I'm not trying, like even this morning, I got up at 5:30 And I had breakfast
Yep.
with a friend of mine, a guy I'm mentoring, he's like a son to me. And then I still had time to go back up to the room. And Katie, my assistant, made sure I had a half hour for bad traffic.
Yep.
Didn't need every minute of it.
Yep. Good.
But I came in here, I want to say tanned and relaxed.
That's beautiful.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It wasn't like,
yeah.
oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I'm 5 minutes late and traffic was so bad. And,
Yeah.
you know, my
You're
head
not
scrambled.
frazzled.
Not
yeah,
frazzled.
Yeah, all of that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that has been a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
Because I'm like pedal to the metal and I was squeezed in 28 things, including a workout, and gotten up at 4 a.m. and now been asleep on the couch.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I need my nap.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of wisdom there. And those are goals
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
you know, I got a couple of decades left, I hope.
Yes.
And
Amen.
I want to keep growing and I want to keep contributing and I want to keep, well, Dallas Willard said, ruthless elimination of hurry. The
That's
one
right.
thing you must do is ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. So
That's
just
right.
to underscore what you said, that is still a challenge for me. You know what my kids called me when they were teenagers? They had a nickname for me, Turbo.
Wow.
Turbo. Because I'm tall.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was always walking 5 paces ahead of my family. Not because I was royalty.
Yeah.
But just like, come on.
Yeah,
hurry
yeah,
up. We
exactly.
gotta go. We
Yeah.
gotta go. And they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
come
yeah.
on, slow down, Turbo.
Yeah.
Slow down, Turbo.
Yeah.
And my kids have done just fine.
That's awesome.
So now I try to walk through the airport at the pace my wife is comfortable at. Not have her huffing. And she's 5'3", I'm 6'2".
Yep.
So, you know, my legs are a little bit longer than hers.
Yeah, for sure.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning.
That pace is sustainable, man. Walking instead of running.
It is a sustainable pace.
That's right.
And that's what I learned, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, another mistake, a trap that leaders fall into is I'm running so hard, I'm so tired, I'm so burned out, I'm going to take a sabbatical.
Mm-hmm.
They take a sabbatical. Here's why I don't think sabbaticals work. Because you take time off, you do a great job.
Yeah.
I'm relaxed.
Yeah.
I feel fantastic. I'm ready to go back.
Yeah.
You go back, and the first Monday back, you feel like you got hit by the bus. What happened? Time off won't heal you because the problem is how you spend your time on. You don't have a problem vacationing. You have a problem vocationing, right? So it's like most of us beach pretty well. It's like we know the fruity drinks. We know how to do that. We know how to get in the ocean. We know how to sit by the pool.
But
But
you
we get
came back
backwards,
with
a
track
boom, boom,
yeah.
boom, boom,
You
boom,
came back
boom.
with track shoes on.
And I've done that way too often.
Yep.
I would watch my time off evaporate in hours, if not days.
Wow.
And I'd be like, how come it's Thursday? I know I was on vacation for 2 weeks. How come I feel like I haven't had a break in 5 years? That's because of an unsustainable pace.
Absolutely correct.
And so, you know, living
Came
away
back
today.
to 191 emails and tried to answer them all by Friday. Yeah.
So I have been obsessed with, until now, this question: how do I live in a way today that will help me thrive tomorrow? Thrive, not survive.
Thrive.
And we're busy. We just did a 3-day conference.
Yeah.
We're doing this today. I got phone calls this afternoon, fly out tonight.
Yep.
But you know, one thing I usually drive myself, but I ordered a driver for tomorrow because we're taking my wife, my mother-in-law. We're going to see our oldest son on the other side of Canada in British Columbia. I'm like, I calculated how many hours I'd have to drive across the Rocky Mountains to the airport, then take a 3-hour flight, land at 11 p.m. On Tuesday, and get home. I'm like, I'm going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
And I got to do podcast interviews the next day.
Yeah.
Get a driver. I can
That's
sleep
right.
in the car.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a couple $100,
Yeah.
whatever.
Absolutely.
It's like the old me would have been like, save the money. We're going to do this.
Right.
And I understand that.
Right.
You know, like that's like fortunate that we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But if
But,
you
like-
got it, get your time back.
Get your time
Yeah.
back.
I pay to get my time back. Craig taught me
Exactly.
that. Craig taught me that.
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He
And I
said
think it's worth it.
anything you can affordably pay
Right.
that will give you your time back, do that. That's where you should spend your money.
Yeah. And we're home for just a few hours tomorrow. I like cutting my lawn.
Yeah.
I'm one of those weird people
Yeah.
who really enjoys it. It's a
Right.
hobby.
Yep.
Hashtag lawn lines on Instagram if you want to look it up. But
Yep.
anyway, I paid someone to do the leaves are starting to fall in Canada.
Yeah.
Paid someone to do my leaves and paid someone to mow my lawn.
Yeah.
So I don't have to think about it for
Yeah.
another week or two.
That's great.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
So yeah, but then I can be fully present
That's
with you.
exactly right.
And I
Without,
can be fully present with my wife
yeah,
tomorrow.
you got good
Rather than
margins.
Quiet.
That's
I got to
right.
get this done.
Yeah, that's good.
Don't ever say quiet to your wife. It's a Marriage tip.
I won't do. I definitely won't do 3. 3 in a row might get me stabbed. So I won't do that. Carey, thank you so much. This has been
helpful.
Oh my gosh. I'm geeking over here. I'm a nerd. So you've given me plenty of stuff to nerd out on. And I'm just so grateful for the research you're doing now, and can't wait to see your findings and get the discoveries. It's going to be awesome.
I appreciate you. I really appreciate the difference you're making in the world.
Thank you.
And thanks for being a bridge to so many people from so many different backgrounds who are trying to figure this stuff out.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Oh, you got to come back, man.
I will.
Like for anything or nothing at all. I just want
Dallas
you back.
Quite a bit.
Okay. Well, then it shall happen.
All right, man.
All right. I love you.
Love you too.
Okay. Everybody, just Google Carey. Just try to type in the last name and it will auto-populate. And
it does. Nieuwhof, you can misspell it.
That's right.
If you
And it'll
spell
pop
it
up.
with numbers, it probably won't come up. But if you come close to Nieuwhof, I will pop up.
Come close to Nieuwhof in the way it phonetically sounds in your head, and I promise you will find him. Start downloading his podcast. Add it to your repertoire, especially for all of our leaders. If you're not, you're leading something. If nothing other than yourself. So all of us are leaders. But if you find yourself leading teams, leading organizations, leading structures, and you want to know how to do it better, I don't know any better podcast for you to listen to than Carey's. So make sure you download it. Make sure you get his resources, his materials. Just follow him and be enlightened. I love you guys, and until next time, peace.
Yeah, so press B with me, and let's let whatever gon' be just be. Yeah, so press B with me, and let's let whatever gon' be just be.